right, good afternoon. Thanks all for staying. My name's Ian Ross. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Oppsites. We're Oakland based. At Oppsites, we're creating an entirely new type of real estate listing, one that connects city and community priorities with investor preferences. Last year alone, there were $200 billion in real estate transactions in the United States. $500 million of that revenue was generated from real estate websites. But most of those websites focus exclusively on properties that are for sale. And every savvy investor knows that properties that are for sale, where the price is already built into it, represents a very small portion of all the properties in a community that are not only lucrative investments, but are in support of community goals. The problem is that cities simply lack an effective tool to identify properties where they want investment and communicate that information to investors. And investors, brokers, and developers lack a single tool to find underexposed real estate opportunities across multiple jurisdictions. And that's why across the country, so many communities have underutilized parcels, yet they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to create plans and policies hoping to attract new investors. But hoping isn't enough. And so often, community goals go unrealized, and the economic potential of those sites goes unfulfilled. And that's why we built Oppsites. Let me tell you how it works. With Oppsites, cities can simply designate properties, regardless of who owns those properties, and whether or not they're for sale, and where they want new investment. And we will push that content to investors and brokers. Investors can find underutilized real estate opportunities. They can even subscribe to preferred cities and regions, and when there's a match, they get a notification. That's why I was saying, we are creating an entirely new type of real estate listing. Forget and just set aside for a moment what's for sale, right? We are identifying properties where the cities and the communities want to see new investment and are helping them to broadcast that content. The value to cities is enormous. They can save time and money, reach a national audience of investors, brokers, and developers, create new revenue, and maximize the value of their tax base. Investors, brokers, and developers can find underexposed real estate opportunities, gain local knowledge. That's typically the sort of knowledge you often gain with relationships, right? And then they can save time and money and reduce their risk because it's the cities who are soliciting the interest after all. Our team is backed by professionals with over 15 years of urban design, economic development, real estate, and technology expertise, and we have raised over $78,000 from 5 different California cities who have already entered into contracts with us for future premium services. Actually, I'm mistaken. We now have a 6th California city because the city of Oakland signed on yesterday to become one of our pilot cities. We go to market this September where we will present Oppsites to over 450 of the 492 incorporated California cities and thousands of economic development professionals at the League of California Cities Conference and the American Planning Association Conference in Los Angeles. I'm Ian Ross. Oppsites connects city priorities with investor preferences. Thank you.
Cool. Start the clock. 5 more minutes for grilling by our beautiful judges.
What's the title of the person in the organization that buys the product?
I'm sorry?
What's the title of the person in the organization that buys the product?
At the city level?
Yes.
Economic development departments, planning departments, city manager's office.
The title of the person.
The title of the person, yeah. It could be city manager, planning director, economic development manager. A range of people buy services from us.
What do you think this sales cycle is going to be like? Because some of these bureaucracies are harder to deal with than others, right? Some will love your initial 6 pilots and sign on quickly. Others could take, I don't know, you tell me, how long could it take?
Right, so we offer basic services which are completely free, and that allows cities to simply start to use Oppsites and they don't have to go through their procurement process, which can be tricky. And then ultimately we offer premium services that they would pay for, which would entail either going to city council or some sort of a procurement process, which are essentially enhanced marketing features. So there are completely free services that every city can simply log in, sign up, and start to designate property to make it as easily accessible as possible.
I think it's a really interesting idea. I mean, there's definitely always areas where you'd say, like, someone should do something with that, and the city wants the tax revenue. Right. Building on the prior question, so what is it that you're telling a city manager that they wouldn't already know? I mean, wouldn't most city managers already kind of have a sense of what the areas they think should be developed are?
They do. For 15 years, we've been providing planning services to cities, and in fact, city managers and planning staff have a lot of knowledge about what they want to see happen. In fact, one of our earliest sort of slogans was monetize city knowledge. and they do know what they want to see happen. They simply don't have a tool to communicate that information effectively to a broader audience than the 5 or 6 brokers that they know personally. So this is a tool for them to communicate what it is they know and prioritize to investors who might be looking for similar opportunities.
Is the idea that they would wrap like economic incentives around it? Like if
They
you
may.
bid on this property, we'll give you some sort of tax break or something.
That could very well be the case. In fact, the number of cities we're working with have all had different ideas as to how to use it. So in one city, for example, they have a bunch of money earmarked for infrastructure, so they identified those sites where the infrastructure creates a financial incentive that lowers the risk of new investment. Other cities simply were rezoning an entire corridor to increase the capacity from commercial to residential, and they just want to put the entire corridor in Oppsites to alert people that what's a muffler shop today could be 20 units tomorrow.
How would you estimate the economic impact you could generate for a city like Oakland? Like on a per property basis or on a per month basis? Like, you know, if you help them rezone, you know, a plot, what is that worth to them?
Sure. Cities make money in 2 primary ways. One is the fees that they get with the development, and the other is simply the value of the tax base increasing. So in that way, we're actually helping cities to monetize 2 different ways. So if they increase the value of a property and there's a new development that occurs there,
Like,
they make money on the fees.
How big in dollars, like rough math?
Oh, well, for
Seems
a
like a
given
lot.
city like Oakland, depending on the number of properties they put in, certainly tens of millions of dollars in tax base.
Yeah. Of tax base in terms of the actual taxes to them.
Increasing the value of the property in the city, what they generate tax revenue from.
And so with the tax rate, like flowing it down, like if I'm the city manager, I can say I generated X, how many dollars of additional tax revenue?
For a given property.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, like, if Oakland did this, you know, how much more money would they get? Is it $1 million a year? Is it $5 million a year? Is it $50,000 a year?
Sure, depending on the level of investment, it could certainly be tens of millions of dollars annually. I would also offer that for a given property that increases in value, the adjacent properties tend to increase in value and become more desirable as well, sort of like removal of blight and community revitalization, the idea of all boats rising together.
Is this a winner-take-all business, or do you think that the cities are going to end up putting this information, these buildings that they want to be sold, in a variety of different places?
Cities already sort of make a number of efforts to market property within the city. The problem is that every city does it differently. And sometimes, for example, you'd find nested within the city's website, they might have properties where they're trying to attract new investment. But we're going to give them a portal to broadcast it to a much larger
But from an
audience.
investor's point of view, do you believe you're going to be the only destination that aggregates all of this stuff?
What we hope to do is capture enough market in California to be the destination that is sourcing the municipal knowledge about this information. The data is public. The data is just found in 1,000 different places, and every different city does it differently. So it's public data, and we're simply communicating it on behalf of the cities.
Coincidentally, we just invested in a Google spin-out called Flux that builds buildings algorithmically, the design of them. It would actually be interesting to combine the two, and because you could say, you know, here are buildings you could build on that land, and then it would actually estimate the taxes that come off
Is it Flux or Genie or Vanavar?
It was called Vanavar, now it's called Flux.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been following that and a number of others, and we think there's an enormous opportunity to partner with not only Flux, but ultimately with other site selectors, because what we're going to be sourcing is the knowledge that the city has.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, bread and butter.
Yeah, bread and butter.